Hi everyone, welcome to another one of our CX conversations. I'm Tim McMillen, Director of eCommerce here at Candyspace, and I'm here today talking about B2B e-commerce with Christian from Computacenter. Christian, do you want to say hello to the folks who might be watching and tell them a bit about your role at Computacenter?
Yes, of course. Hi everyone. So my name is Traud. I'm the Group Head of E-commerce and Custom Integrations at Computacenter. And we are a global IT service provider with a large presence in Europe and the Americas. And we are headquartered out of the UK, so we are a British company. And our customer focus is on large private and public sector organizations for which we deliver everything around IT. So we are a real one-stop shop when it comes to IT. In terms of my role, I'm currently in a global responsibility for the topic of e-commerce in Computacenter. I've been working overall for 20 years in the IT industry, 15 of which I've been working in e-commerce related roles. And my function right now consists of teams focusing on the design and implementation of customized e-commerce solutions for our customers, an area which focuses on the operations of these solutions, and then also the further development of our e-commerce capabilities is part of my responsibilities.
And you guys truly are pioneers of B2B e-commerce, but how have you seen B2B buyer behaviour change over the last 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I think what I do see is like a consistent sort of change from a rather centralized buying behavior over to a decentralized approach, which really focuses on empowering end users in the buying process and really give them a bit more responsibility in purchasing products in the corporate environment as well. That's not necessarily something that so much happened only over the last 5, but really over a more extended period. Right now, we actually see the same expectations in the B2B space as in the B2C space.
I don't think you're alone with that realization. I think that the expectations of B2B buyers on the whole are the same as when they're at home shopping from their sofas on Amazon. They want that same experience when they're in the workplace, ordering for their business. But I'm keen to understand more about from Computacenter's perspective. When did you first realize that actually a B2B sales channel or e-commerce channel was going to be essential for you guys?
Well, I think that goes back a long time, because I think, as you rightly said, I think I consider ourselves as well a bit, as pioneers in this, because we really started this, back around the millennium. At first, mainly driven by the nature of our business, and the large quantities we were dealing with in terms of and volumes in terms of orders, with system integrations, but then soon as well moving on to actual e-commerce platforms that we provided to our customers, because we realized there was much more in that topic, but efficiency gains and a mechanism to cope with workload. Yeah.
So is it fair to say quite a bit of the drive towards e-commerce was customer led?
It was. So it was not necessarily something that we had driven on all fronts. I think quite selfishly we had driven the part that benefited us in for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
With a realization that there was much more to this than that.
Yeah. So how can the e-commerce function and sales teams work closer together?
Well, I think for us, it was a quite natural thing to happen because, as you rightly said, it was a customer demand that all of a sudden, was there, and, we're raised with our account teams, and they needed some support in responding to that. and as well very quickly, identified, the value in both my team as well as the e-commerce solution as such, because that would enable them to then focus, on their respective tasks a lot more, as in the sales teams, focus on the relationship part and on actually working that opportunity. And then for when the solution is actually in place, it saves us, the transactional efforts, that we otherwise would have in the inside sales space, and they can focus, on upselling, being more there, having more time for the customer as well. That's a really good thing, and something, I think that quite naturally drove, that collaboration, and that was a good and natural fit.
So is it fair to say that in Computacenter, the sales people, the sales teams actually embrace the e-commerce channels and see it as really complementary and helpful to them in developing their accounts?
Yeah, once they identified the benefits, and I think that's key. I think it's as well fair to say, and honest of me to say, it wasn't right at the start, because it took some time for them to really see the benefits for them. But once they saw the benefits, they were all behind that.
Great. And are there any other ways that you're using technology to improve experiences for your B2B customers?
Well, I mean, what we do as an IT service provider is very, very broad. And by the nature of that, our business processes are relatively complex. And what technology in this context really helps us to do, reduce all of that complexity and condense it right down to a super simple and intuitive process for our end users. And that is, I think, the main challenge and benefit at the same time, to make something that is utterly complex in the background look rather simple and really intuitive. And
that for me is the embodiment of good design and technology working in harmony
I agree.
To help customers, not feel that friction or not feel the pain that goes on behind the scenes. Brilliant. What was the biggest challenge you guys had to overcome when you were implementing e-commerce for the first time?
Well, I think exactly that complexity, which, for the end user who is working with that process on the front end, does make no sense whatsoever to keep that really away from them, and not having them exposed to that as much. I think that was really a massive challenge for us, because quite easily you can sort of fall into that trap, and that is where I think we were quite grateful, to have you on our side to keep us honest and make sure, we don't really expose too much of that internal complexity, out to our customers and end users specifically.
Great. And last question from me today on this topic. You've been at Computacenter working in e-commerce for like 20 years. It's been in a really exciting time in that space. E-commerce doesn't stand still. There's always something new coming along, something changing, something to keep up to date with. What advice would you give yourself if you could have a conversation with a young Christian on day one at Computacenter?
Ooh. Yeah, well, I think what advice would I give myself? I would probably give myself the advice of always sort of question the status quo. Yeah, always keep on your toes, but also trust your gut feeling. And then, if you are convinced something needs to change, pursue it vigorously and make sure it's really leading to an outcome. Because I think with some of the journey we've gone through, we could have started that a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would have probably been a somewhat easier journey. So if I would have the opportunity to, talk to me in those younger days, I would probably say, you know, press ahead with things, and you know, it will pay off in the end.
Yeah, listen to your gut.
That's it.
Brilliant. Well, Christian, it's been great having you here. Thanks for sharing your insights, and I'm sure everyone at home watching this will enjoy listening to this.
Thanks for having me.